I'll introduce Erik Chan, who is the Southeast Asian Director from Allotrope Partners. We're really glad he could join us today and share a bit more insights about, the work that they're doing in Southeast Asia and Philippines particularly, and share a bit about also, what is their experience been or on the design front from building out a model which talks a bit around the local capital mobilization piece. I'll let Erik come in and just share a bit more introductions about himself, about Allotrope, as well as the work that you're doing in Indonesia, Erik, through the Lupa initiative.
Sounds great. Thanks, Krishna. Thanks, Edwin and Convergence team. Happy to be here and glad to talk to everyone. Let's talk about some background on Allotrope, what we've been doing with Convergence. We've had a ton of support from the team over the past, probably coming on 4 years now, and we've been through both grants. We started with the feasibility study grant. Then we moved on in 2022, 2023 to proof of concept. We're kind of wrapping up proof of concept right now and actually really heading into commercialization. So I hope some of these slides will give you a real life example of how we've built out this platform a lot with Convergence support. So you see a couple of names here. Allotrope is the name of the main company. We're headquartered out of California. I'm based in Singapore. We've got a team in Philippines, also Vietnam. Kapaluan Renewables, this is the newly set up entity specifically to operate what Krishna was talking about called the Local Utility Project Aggregator. That is the name of the platform. This is the name of the operating company that will carry this forward into commercialization. Okay, next slide. Basic background on Allotrope. We're a mix of clean energy advisory work by part of the team. Another part of the team, let's say myself and Singapore and Philippines, focuses on renewable energy development. We've been doing that for a number of years, from some solar rooftop sites to battery storage, and that's kind of how we got kicked off in this direction of setting up Lupa. Next slide. Over the years, Allotrope has also run some other platforms. One is called Clean Energy Investment Accelerator, supporting corporates, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam for their RE transition. In Philippines, we set up something called Greening the Banks. This was early days, 2017, 2018, really engaging banks to get them more active in RE financing. We still run this program today, and it's through these platforms the teams got to know what was going on with the electric cooperatives, their need to move to RE, and that's how in 2020 we set up Lupa and got that first grant from the Convergence team. Next slide. Philippines is the focus. The government is very pro on RE. I think one figure there that just worth highlighting is they're looking at the renewable energy mix to be at least 35% of the country's mix by 2030. So it's a good market for us and anybody else looking to kick off RE in Southeast Asia. Next slide. In the Philippines energy market, we focus on a sector called electric cooperatives. By comparison, if you looked at Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, there's only one state utility company who operates everything. In Philippines, it's a little bit different. You do have a national grid, you've got a national transmission line, but all local networks are run by electric cooperatives. There's 130 of them, and this is our market focus. Next slide. This is the key driver for Lupa. It's something called RPS. RPS stands for Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard. It's a government mandate that all utility companies and electric cooperatives have to transition to RE starting in 2022. Every year, they must increase by at least 2.5% of their energy mix must come from renewables. So this is what helps push the Lupa platform along with the cooperatives. Next slide. What should we say here? With the first round of funding in the feasibility stage, it was the concept. how do we go out and build relationships with, not all 130 at once, but over time, build, that set of 10, 20, 30 relationships with the cooperatives. At the same time, approach them knowing that they have challenges across the board. It could be technical challenges, mainly it's financial. So we've got to go out and find investors for project level investments and really bring them expertise on how to do development because that has not been their traditional business. They really just run local transmission and distribution, not build their own assets. Next slide. Yes, so as we were just saying, lots of barriers for them. Lupa is to provide the various sets of solutions that they need, from technical to regulatory. Mainly, it's bringing them funding support. Next slide. So this really is what the key result out of the feasibility stage, coming up with the design concept. And what we did here is we looked at the market in two ecosystems. On the left side, we built out the ecosystem of electric cooperatives, call it the pipeline. We have a whole series of them with different levels of agreements, from light teaming agreements to LOIs. One of our more advanced relationships is already a binding MOA. PPA is the next step by end of the year. And on the right side, we built out another sub-ecosystem of all the different types of partners to support these cooperatives. It's technical partners, it's local EPC companies, and a series of investors and banks who are looking to fund EC projects. Next slide. These are the project sectors that we focus on with the ECs. Mainly right now, it's a lot of straightforward solar farm projects, maybe as small as a megawatt. Generally, we're more like about 5 to 10 megawatts. Microgrids for the off-grid islands, that's also in the mix, and the ECs definitely have to focus on energy access for those remote communities. So there's a small pipeline of those opportunities emerging. There you see a diesel power plant. They are also subject to the RPS. We have one diesel power station that's looking to integrate renewables. And in the long term, we would like to get into standalone battery storage for the local ECs and supporting their local grid. Next slide.
Eric, sorry to cut you off. I know we
Sure.
also have a lot of content to cover, but yeah, just hoping to get to the other pieces when you're done.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Let's skip this slide. I'll go quick on the last three just to show some project examples. This is one, it's a 13 megawatt project. This one we should get to PPA, let's say by end of the year or January. Next slide. This is another smaller EC. They want to do a small solar farm project on their property, and we'll probably do some solar rooftop for the gymnasium facility as well. Next slide. This is an example of an off-grid island microgrid. This is a marine sanctuary island. This EC is looking at renewables for more energy access for this island. It's a small project, but it's important to support the ECs, across the board. And this may be the last slide, and then we can jump into Q&A. Okay, there we
Great,
go.
great. Thank you. Thank you for also just sharing this, and sorry for cutting you off. Just in interest of time, there's so much to cover, but I'm sure there's a lot of helpful information here, and a lot of applicants, and other folks who've joined today's call. I would also encourage you to get in touch directly with Eric as well after the
Sure.
call to deep dive into some of these aspects if you're interested and understand more. But yeah, just wanted to quickly cover, just talking about, the local capital mobilization piece. I know as part of the work that you've been doing for this initiative, but broadly as Allotrope in the region, was also engaging with a lot of local banks there and for support and getting them as access to funding for this kind of project. What has been your experience there in trying to get them to mobilizing local financing from banks and other financial institutions and investors for this project?
Yeah, I'll cover both equity and debt, and really timely that we talk about local banks, because today we talk with one of the bigger Philippine local banks, and in our sector we're talking about electric cooperatives. There's 130 of them, but these are not the big projects. These are not 50 megawatt projects. These are not 100 megawatt projects. That's a different sector in the Philippines energy market. And lots of investors want to do the large scale for scalability reasons. So when you come to the ECs and what I think is really tier two, this 1 to 10 megawatt, we're not that large scale project that everybody wants. You've got to be more particular in finding investors who want these sizes. We'll come to that on the equity side shortly. Anyway, so today we talked with one of the local banks, and they are really looking for these bite-sized projects. 2 megawatts, 3 megawatts, they could go smaller. Surprisingly, they said they're already funding microgrid projects like the one you saw on the screen, solar plus battery storage. I think that's a great sign for where the local banks are going, that they don't only want to do the 100 megawatt projects, that they're ready to go into this tier two sector, including the batteries. One piece of blended finance did come up today with the local bank, and this is even though they're so familiar with the country and the ECs, depending upon the EC's profile and credit rating, they may also want to see some type of guarantee attached to that off-taker. So that's something that we're going to now start to engage more. They put out a couple of names of local guarantee companies, and I think that's going to be needed, at least with a handful of ECs who may be considered a little bit riskier.
Got it. Got it. No, I think that's really helpful context. And just getting into that a bit deeper, right? You mentioned smaller ticket sizes, obviously credit risks around revolving around ECs for tier two ECs can be an issue. How do you see sort of blended finance play a role in such kind of transactions where typically they're not, commercially viable already? And how can sort of blended finance help in such
Yeah,
situations?
I think and looking at the ECs, we've got two kinds. Some ECs have really good ratings and they may do a bigger project like 10 megawatts, and that's already pretty commercial. So I don't think the blended finance is really necessary there. It's when we get to the outside ECs, the ones who are a little bit more remote, smaller profile, their credit rating may be, kind of second tier credit rating. They've got a green, yellow, red system there for the ECs. I think the yellows and the reds would need that type of support. So it could be various ways. It could be a security guarantee for their offtake. It could be some type of concessional debt to blend in with the local banks. Maybe it's some type of soft or refundable grant just to help bridge some equity for a while. I think that's the form of blended capital that we would see for a particular set of ECs.
Got it, got it. And that's very helpful. And I think that was what you've identified, right? It just like also through this blended finance pool, what you're trying to also do is an aggregate a portfolio of projects. So independently, they might be small disaggregated project, like small scale projects, but on an aggregate level. And if you can try to sort of pool some of that financing going forward, then it makes it more viable. And with the blended finance component, right, for a lot more financial institutions or commercial investors locally to be able to invest in these projects because of how important it is from an impact perspective as well for a lot of these sectors to transition to renewable energy, in addition to obviously the regulatory requirements by the Philippines government that imposes it on them.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I even think the way we got Lupa and Kapuluan started, it really was with a blended finance approach. Even though we're not talking project level, it's that extra support from Convergence. I mean, I look at that as that soft capital to help get the program launched, and it really helps buy us what's called runway, where we're not so desperate to go out and raise seed capital so early. So it buys us that time to build up the feasibility study, build out the concept, show some pipeline, and be able to show a more mature company once you go out to raise actual seed capital. And we've been able to hold that off for a number of years already.
Great, great. No, that's really helpful. And Eric, we're always glad to support you in the great work that you're doing and other applicants, right, on some of the interesting solutions you've been developing. Thank you once again, Eric, for all the great insights you shared.